Commander Damian Reeves adjusted the small pulse blade hidden beneath his uniform sleeve as he proceeded down the gleaming corridor of the International Space Station's newly constructed diplomatic wing. 6 months since the Vexillian ships appeared in Earth's orbit, and humanity was still reeling from first contact. As the lead astronaut assigned to the diplomatic team, he'd been privy to information few others possessed, including what these aliens truly intended. "Commander Reeves, Ambassador Calethorn will see you now," announced the human aide, oblivious to the weight of the moment. Damian nodded, his heartbeat steady despite what he was about to do. The classified intelligence report had been unambiguous. The diplomatic mission was a smokescreen. The Vexillians were assessing Earth's defenses for a full colonization effort. Billions would die if they succeeded. One life to save humanity. He'd made harder choices before. The doors slid open to reveal a chamber transformed to accommodate the Vexillians' unique atmospheric preferences. A faint purple mist hung in the air, and at the center stood Calethorn, tall, imposing, with iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, tracked Damian's movement as he entered. "Commander," he greeted, his voice a resonant timbre that always sent an involuntary tension through Damian's body. "I'm pleased you accepted my invitation for a private audience." Damian smiled thinly. "You mentioned urgent matters regarding the treaty." "Indeed," Cale moved toward a holographic display. "There are aspects of our proposal that have been misinterpreted." He positioned himself carefully, waiting for the moment when Cale's back would fully turn to him. One swift strike to the neural cluster at the base of his skull, the only vulnerability his team had identified in Vexillian physiology. "Your species fears subjugation," Cale continued, manipulating the hologram with long, elegant fingers. "But our intentions—" Damian moved with the precision of his military training, the blade extending silently as he lunged forward. But as his arm came down, Cale spun with impossible speed, catching his wrist in a grip that felt like steel. Their eyes locked, Damian's wide with shock, Cale's narrowed with something that wasn't quite anger. "Fascinating," he murmured, examining Damian as one might a curious specimen. "You truly believed this would work." In one fluid motion, he disarmed the human, the blade clattering to the floor. Damian struggled against his grip, but the Vexillian's strength vastly outmatched his own. "Release me," he demanded. To his surprise, Cale did. "You've made a grave miscalculation, Commander Reeves. Not about my intentions, those remain peaceful despite your species' paranoia, but about the consequences of your actions." "What consequences?" Damian backed toward the door, knowing that escape was impossible but unwilling to stand passively. "By the ancient laws of Vexilia, when one attempts to take the life of another and fails, their life becomes bound to their intended victim," Cale explained, a strange light entering his 4 eyes. "You tried to kill me. By our most sacred laws, that has made you my mate." Damian froze. "That's absurd." "Perhaps to you, but not to my people, whose customs will determine the future of your planet." His expression softened slightly. "You should know that the intelligence you received was planted by a faction that wants this alliance to fail." "You expect me to believe that?" Damian challenged, though a seed of doubt had been planted. "I expect nothing." Cale approached him slowly, studying him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "But you have inadvertently initiated a bond that cannot be broken. And now, Commander Damian Reeves, we find ourselves in a most unexpected diplomatic situation." He reached out, his fingers stopping just short of Damian's face. "You are now, by the highest law of my people, my chosen one, and that changes everything." Commander Damian Reeves paced the length of his new quarters aboard the Vexillian flagship, a prison disguised as luxury. 3 days had passed since his failed assassination attempt, and the reality of his situation was still sinking in. "This is insane," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. The viewport offered a perfect view of Earth, tantalizingly close yet unreachable. After the incident, as diplomatic channels were now calling it, he'd been promptly transferred to Cale's ship under the pretense of cultural exchange. The door slid open without warning, and Calethorn entered, his tall figure dominating the space. Today, the alien wore ceremonial attire, a fitted garment with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change with his movements. "Your presence is required at the council meeting," Kale stated, his 4 eyes assessing Damien's disheveled appearance. "I've brought appropriate attire." Damien crossed his arms. "I'm not playing along with this charade." "This is not a game, Commander." Kale placed a folded garment on the bed. "The Council wishes to formalize our bond. If you refuse to participate, they will interpret it as Earth rejecting our alliance entirely." "So I'm a hostage." "You are a bondmate," Kale corrected, a hint of frustration coloring his tone. "A status you created when you tried to end my life." Damien approached him, defiant. "And what exactly does being your bondmate entail?" "Among my people, a life bond is sacred. When one fails to take another's life, they offer their own in return, not as servitude, but as partnership." Kale's expression softened slightly. "Had you succeeded in killing me, my family would have honored you as a warrior. Since you failed, tradition dictates we become joined." "Joined how?" Damien asked, his voice dropping warily. "In all ways," Kale replied, his gaze unflinching. "Political, social, and intimate eventually." Damien stepped back, his mind racing. "That's not happening." "The intimacy can be delayed, the political union cannot." Kale moved to the viewport, his reflection overlaying the image of Earth. "My faction supports peaceful cooperation with your planet. Others want to take Earth by force." He turned back to Damien. "Our bond, however unconventional, gives me significant political advantage. It could mean the difference between peace and war." The weight of responsibility settled on Damien's shoulders. He tried to save humanity with a blade. Now perhaps he could do it with this bizarre diplomatic arrangement. "Fine, I'll attend your meeting," he conceded, "but don't expect me to play the loving spouse." "I expect you to be exactly what you are, a fierce protector of your world," Kale replied. "That intensity is admirable." An hour later, Damien stood before the Vexillian High Council, 7 imposing figures seated in a semicircle. He wore the garment Kale had provided, a surprisingly comfortable suit that adjusted to his body temperature. "The human attempted to take your life, Ambassador Kalethorn," one counselor stated, her voice like liquid crystal. "By the ancient rites, he is now bound to you, but can we trust his kind?" Kale stepped forward. "Commander Reeves acted out of misinformation and loyalty to his people, qualities I respect." "And does he accept the bond?" another counselor asked, directing the question at Damien. Before he could answer, the chamber doors burst open. A tall Vexillian with crimson markings stormed in. "This is an abomination," he shouted. "A human as bondmate to one of our highest officials. General Verk will not recognize this union." Kale's posture stiffened. "General Verk's opinion matters little in council matters, Envoy Zorn." Damien observed the interaction carefully. This was the faction Kale had mentioned, those who wanted war. "The human should speak," the head counselor interjected. "Commander Reeves, do you accept the consequences of your actions?" All eyes turned to him. Damien straightened his shoulders and made a split-second decision. "Where I come from, we believe in taking responsibility," he said firmly. "I accept the bond." A murmur rippled through the council. Zorn's face contorted with rage, while something like relief flashed across Kale's features. "Then it is settled," the head counselor declared. "The bond is recognized." Later, as they returned to their shared quarters, another unwelcome surprise. Kale turned to Damien. "You surprised me in there." "Don't read too much into it," Damien replied. "I saw a tactical advantage and took it." "Even so," Kale's 4 eyes studied him with unsettling intensity. "You've bought us time." "Time for what?" "To find the truth." Kale moved closer, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. "Someone wants this alliance to fail. The assassination attempt you were manipulated into making was part of their plan." Damien felt a chill run down his spine as Kale's fingers lightly brushed his arm. "Rest, Commander," the alien said softly. "Tomorrow we begin the official joining ceremony, and after that—" his eyes glimmered with something Damien couldn't interpret. "After that we discover who our true enemies are." As Kale withdrew to the separate sleeping chamber, Damien stood motionless, caught between worlds and loyalties, wondering what strange twist of fate had turned his attempted murder into a marriage, and whether this unwanted union might be humanity's best hope for survival. The Vexillian observation deck offered a panoramic view of the stars, countless pinpoints of light stretching into infinity. Damien stood at the viewport, his reflection ghostly against the backdrop of space. 2 weeks had passed since the joining ceremony, a blur of ritual gestures and words in a language he couldn't understand. "You're up early," came Kale's voice from behind him. Damien didn't turn, couldn't sleep. "Understandable." Kale moved to stand beside him, his blue skin luminescent in the dim lighting. "The neural link can cause restlessness in its early stages." The neural link had been the most disturbing part of the ceremony. A small biomechanical implant now rested at the base of Damien's skull, creating what Kale called a empathic bridge between bondmates. So far, it had only manifested as occasional flashes of foreign emotion, Kale's emotions, washing over him unexpectedly. "I don't want your feelings in my head," Damien said flatly. "The link is rudimentary. It will never transmit thoughts, only basic emotional states." Kale's 4 eyes studied the starfield. "It's meant to foster understanding between mates." "We're not mates," Damien corrected automatically. "We're political allies under duress." A hint of amusement colored Kale's response. "As you wish. Nevertheless, we have a council meeting to attend. Envoy Zorn has been pushing for military exercises near Earth's moon." That got Damien's full attention. Military exercises? That wasn't part of any agreement. "Precisely why we must object." Kale turned from the viewport. "But first, there's something I need to show you." Kale led him through rarely used corridors to a secured chamber deep within the ship. After a series of biometric scans, the door slid open to reveal a small room filled with holographic displays. "What is this?" Damien asked. "My private intelligence center." Kale activated the main display. "For the past year, I've been gathering evidence against a faction within our military that wants to conquer Earth rather than ally with it." Damien watched as images and data scrolled across the screen, intercepted communications, weapons schematics, deployment plans. His stomach tightened. "This is what we suspected," he murmured. "Yes, but not from my faction." Kale's voice hardened. "General Verk has been planning this invasion for months. He planted the intelligence that led to your assassination attempt, hoping to derail diplomatic relations." "Why show me this now?" "Because today, Verk will propose defensive measures that are actually the first phase of his invasion plan." Kale turned to face Damien directly. "I need you to trust me in this council meeting, completely." Damien's instinct was to refuse. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But something through the neural link gave him pause. A sense of urgency, yes, but also sincerity. "Fine," he said reluctantly. "What's your plan?" The council chamber buzzed with tension when they arrived. General Verk himself had come, a hulking Vexillian with battle scars across his face and a coldness in his eyes that needed no translation. "Ambassador Kalethorn," Verk acknowledged with barely concealed disdain. His gaze shifted to Damien. "And the human bondmate, how progressive." The head counselor called the meeting to order. "General Verk has requested emergency security measures around Earth. We will hear his proposal." Verk stepped forward, activating a tactical display. "Our intelligence suggests Earth forces are mobilizing weapons platforms in orbit. I propose immediate countermeasures, including armed patrols and defensive installations on their moon." Damien felt a flare of anger, both his and, surprisingly, Kale's. "These allegations are false," Kale stated firmly. "Commander Reeves has direct knowledge of Earth's orbital capabilities, and I have my own intelligence sources." He nodded to Damien. Taking his cue, Damien addressed the council. "Earth has no weapons platforms capable of threatening Vexillian ships. Your scans would have detected them. These claims are fabricated." "You would say that," Verk sneered. "Your loyalty is to your own kind." "My loyalty," Damien countered, "is to truth and survival. Placing weapons near Earth will be seen as an act of aggression and will provoke the exact response you claim to be preventing." Kale subtly brushed his fingers against Damien's arm, a signal they had agreed upon. Damien stepped back, allowing Kale to deliver the killing blow. "General," Kale said, his voice level, "perhaps you can explain these." He transmitted files to the council's displays, the intelligence he had shown Damien earlier. "These are communications between your office and Severan weapons manufacturers, dated months before first contact. You've been planning this invasion from the beginning." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Verk's face contorted with rage as he lunged toward Kale, drawing a concealed weapon. Without thinking, Damien threw himself between them, knocking Verk's arm aside. The energy blast intended for Kale grazed Damien's shoulder instead, searing through his uniform. Security personnel swarmed Verk, subduing him as he shouted accusations of treason. "Commander," Kale caught Damien as he staggered, pain radiating from the wound. Through the neural link, Damien felt genuine concern flooding from Kale. "I'm fine," he grunted, "just a graze." The head counselor's voice cut through the din. "General Verk is hereby detained pending investigation. Ambassador Kalethorn, see to your bondmate's injury. This meeting is adjourned." In their quarters, as a Vexillian medic applied regenerative treatment to his shoulder, Damien studied Kale's face. "You knew he would react violently," he said. "I suspected. I didn't expect you to protect me." Kale dismissed the medic and sat beside Damien. "That was unexpected." Damien shrugged, then winced at the pain. "Tactical decision. We need you alive to keep Earth safe." "Is that the only reason?" Kale asked quietly. Through the neural link, Damien sensed something new, vulnerability, perhaps, or hope. He turned away, uncomfortable with the intimacy of the connection. "For now," he answered honestly, "but I'm beginning to think we might be on the same side after all." Kale's hand rested lightly on his uninjured shoulder. "That, Commander Reeves, is the most promising thing I've heard since you tried to kill me." Despite himself, Damien felt the corner of his mouth twitch upward. Maybe this strange, unwanted union wasn't entirely a diplomatic prison. Maybe, just maybe, it was becoming something else entirely. A month after Verk's arrest, Damien stood beside Kale on the shuttle platform, awaiting the Earth delegation's arrival. The expansive docking bay hummed with activity as Vexillian crew prepared for the first official diplomatic mission from Earth to the flagship. "Nervous?" Kale asked, his voice low enough that only Damien could hear. "Cautious," Damien corrected, adjusting the formal attire he'd been provided, a hybrid of human and Vexillian design. "These are my people, but I'm not sure how they see me now." Through their neural link, he sensed Kale's concern. Over the past weeks, the connection had deepened, becoming less intrusive and more comfortable, a fact that both unnerved and reassured him. "Your status as my bondmate has prevented war," Kale reminded him. "They should be grateful." Damien gave him a sidelong glance. "Humans don't always respond to should the way you'd expect." The shuttle docked with precision, and moments later, the airlock cycled open. Admiral Helena Winters led the delegation, her weathered face betraying no emotion as her gaze fell on Damien. Behind her came 3 other officials and a security detail. "Commander Reeves," she greeted formally, then turned to Kale. "Ambassador Kalethorn, Earth appreciates this opportunity for direct dialogue." "The pleasure is ours, Admiral," Kale responded smoothly. "We have prepared accommodations and a reception to welcome you." As they walked through the corridors, Damien fell into step beside Admiral Winters. "Permission to speak freely, Admiral?" he asked quietly. She nodded curtly. "The brass is divided on your situation, Reeves. Some think you've gone native, others believe you're playing the long game for Earth's benefit." Her eyes narrowed. "Which is it?" "With respect, ma'am, it's more complicated than that." Damien kept his voice low. "The Vexillians aren't a monolith. There are factions. Kale's people genuinely want peaceful relations." "And what do you want, Commander?" The question caught him off guard. What did he want? A month ago, the answer would have been simple: to complete his mission and return to Earth. Now, "I want to prevent war," he finally answered, "and I believe this arrangement is our best chance." Something in her expression softened slightly. "We'll see." The reception was held in a vast chamber designed to approximate Earth atmospheric conditions. As drinks and unfamiliar foods circulated, Damien observed Kale expertly navigating the diplomatic minefield, his natural charisma transcending species barriers. "Your bondmate is quite the diplomat," commented Dr. Marcus Reed, the Earth delegation's xenobiologist, approaching Damien with a drink in hand. "Strange how things work out, isn't it? You leave Earth to eliminate a threat and return married to it." "We're not married," Damien said automatically, though the denial felt increasingly hollow. "Semantics," Reed waved dismissively. "The important thing is what comes next. The Council is voting tomorrow on the new treaty provisions, yes." That's right, full non-aggression pact, technology exchange protocols, territorial boundaries. Damien took a sip of his drink, a Vexillian beverage he'd grown accustomed to. It's a good deal for Earth. Reed nodded, his eyes calculating. And what happens to you after the treaty is signed? The question gave Damien pause. He and Kale hadn't discussed what would come after. Would he return to Earth? Would Kale expect him to remain on the flagship? The uncertainty was suddenly discomfiting. I serve at the pleasure of Earth Command, he answered diplomatically. Indeed, Reed smiled thinly and moved away. Later that night, as the Earth delegation retired to their quarters, Damien felt a distinct unease. Something about Reed's questions had disturbed him. You're troubled, Kale observed as they returned to their shared quarters. Just tired, Damien deflected, but the neural link betrayed him. Kale approached, closer than usual. I've learned enough about humans to recognize when you're lying, neural link aside. Their proximity sent an unexpected warmth through Damien. Over the weeks, they developed a routine, a comfortable coexistence that occasionally bordered on friendship. But moments like this, moments of genuine connection, still caught him off guard. What happens after the treaty? He asked bluntly. Kale's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of surprise. That depends partly on you. On me. The bond is permanent by our law, but I would not keep you from your home if you wish to return. Kale's voice held a note Damien hadn't heard before. Though I admit I've grown accustomed to your presence. Before Damien could respond, the ship's alarm blared. Kale moved immediately to the communication panel. Security breach in delegation quarters, came the report. Weapons fire detected. They rushed to the scene, finding chaos. 2 Vexillian guards lay wounded outside the Earth delegation's rooms. Inside, Admiral Winters was holding a defensive position with her security team. What happened? Damien demanded. Dr. Reed, she spat. He tried to access restricted areas, then attacked when confronted. He's barricaded himself in the communications room. Kale turned to his security chief. Isolate that section, lock down all transmissions. Too late, came a voice from behind them. They turned to see Reed holding a small device in one hand and a weapon in the other. Signals already sent. What signal? Damien stepped forward. Reed, what did you do? What you failed to do, Commander. Reed's face twisted with contempt. Eliminated the threat. Verk's supporters on Earth agreed the only good Vexillian is a dead one. With horrifying clarity, Damien understood. You've triggered some kind of attack. A targeted pathogen, Reed confirmed, smiling coldly. Engineered to affect only Vexillian biology. It's dispersing through the ship's ventilation system now. Kale staggered suddenly, a hand going to his throat. Around them, other Vexillians began showing similar symptoms. Without hesitation, Damien lunged at Reed, knocking the weapon from his hand. They grappled briefly before Damien overpowered him, pinning him to the ground. The antidote, Damien growled. Where is it? Reed laughed. There isn't one, that's the point. Admiral Winters approached, her expression grim. This wasn't authorized, Reeves. We didn't sanction this. Damien barely heard her. Through the neural link, he felt Kale's pain, his struggle to breathe. Terror gripped him, not for Earth, not for the mission, but for Kale. The medical bay, he said urgently. They must have countermeasures for biological attacks. Hours later, after the ship's medical team had synthesized an emergency treatment, Damien sat beside Kale's medical pod, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The crisis had been contained, the pathogen neutralized, but the damage to trust was incalculable. Admiral Winters entered quietly. He'll recover. Damien nodded. They all will, but the treaty is more important than ever, she finished firmly. Commander, I need to know where your loyalty lies now, not as a military officer, but as a human being. Damien looked at Kale, feeling the faint pulse of their connection even in the alien's sedated state. When he'd first tried to kill Kale, it had been out of duty to Earth. When he'd saved him today, it had been out of something else entirely. My loyalty, he said slowly, is to peace, and to him. The admission was as much a surprise to himself as to the Admiral. Winters studied him for a long moment. Then make it count, Commander, because after today, both our worlds need people who can stand in the middle and see both sides. As she left, Damien took Kale's hand, the blue skin cool against his own. Through the neural link, he sent what he hoped was reassurance, comfort. And something else, something he wasn't ready to name but could no longer deny. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Vexillian officials filled one side, Earth's expanded delegation the other. In the center, at a specially designed podium, stood Damien and Kale, a physical embodiment of the unprecedented alliance they were about to formalize. 6 weeks had passed since the biological attack. 6 weeks of intense negotiations, accusations, and finally, hard-won compromise. Damien glanced at Kale, noting the lingering fatigue in his posture, visible only to someone who knew him well. And Damien did know him well now, better than he had ever expected to. "Representatives of Earth and Vexilia," Kale began, his resonant voice carrying through the chamber. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning." Admiral Winters nodded slightly from her position with the Earth delegation. After the attack, she had become an unexpected ally, working tirelessly to isolate Reed's extremist faction and rebuild diplomatic channels. "What happened aboard this ship was a betrayal of both our people's values," Damien continued, picking up the thread with practiced ease. "But from that darkness has come greater understanding. The revised treaty before you today reflects that understanding." Through the neural link, Damien could feel Kale's pride and determination, emotions that now mirrored his own. The connection had deepened during Kale's recovery, evolving from something imposed to something cherished. "The key provisions," Kale outlined, "include mutual defense protocols, shared scientific research, designated neutral zones for cultural exchange, and a joint governance council to oversee implementation. Most importantly," Damien added, "the treaty recognizes the sovereignty of both worlds while creating pathways to a shared future." Questions came from both sides, pointed, challenging, but largely constructive. Together, they addressed each concern, their responses complementing one another in a dance of diplomacy that reflected weeks of private conversations. "And what of your status, Commander Reeves?" asked a senior Earth official. "The treaty makes no mention of your unique position." Damien met the question steadily. "My status remains as it has been, bondmate to Ambassador Kalethorn under Vexillian law and liaison to Earth under human authority. I stand at the intersection of our worlds by choice now, not by circumstance." He felt a wave of emotion from Kale through their link. Gratitude, affection, and something deeper that still sometimes made Damien catch his breath. "If there are no further questions," Kale concluded, "we invite the primary signatories to come forward." As Admiral Winters and the Vexillian High Counselor approached to sign the treaty, Damien and Kale stepped back, their hands brushing briefly. "We did it," Damien murmured. "We did," Kale agreed softly, "against considerable odds." The formal ceremony concluded with traditional gestures from both cultures, an Earth handshake and a Vexillian palm-to-forehead acknowledgement. As the chamber erupted in measured applause, Damien felt a profound sense of completion. The mission he had embarked on months ago to protect Earth had been accomplished, though in a way he could never have imagined. Later at the reception, Admiral Winters sought them out. "Commander," she said, offering her hand, "Earth Command has officially recognized your new status. Your commission has been modified to reflect your role as permanent liaison to the Vexillian people." "Thank you, Admiral," Damien replied, genuinely moved by the gesture. "Ambassador Kalethorn," she continued, turning to Kale, "my government extends its deepest apologies again for the actions of Dr. Reed and his associates. They've been apprehended and will face justice." "What matters now is the path forward," Kale responded graciously. "Your support has been instrumental in healing the wounds his actions caused." When they finally retired to their quarters, exhaustion and elation mingled between them. The viewport framed Earth and the Vexillian flagship in perfect alignment, two worlds literally coming together. "I need to ask you something," Kale said, removing his formal attire with characteristic precision. "Something I've hesitated to broach." Damien sensed unusual nervousness through their link. "What is it?" "The bond ceremony we underwent was incomplete," Kale explained carefully. "The final stage of a Vexillian life bond remains unconsummated between us." Damien's heart rate quickened. He had known this conversation would come eventually. The intimate component. Yes, Kale moved closer, his four eyes focused intently on Damien's face. Previously, I would not have asked this of you. The political alliance was sufficient, but now. Now things have changed, Damien finished for him. The tension between them had been building for weeks, an attraction neither had openly acknowledged but both increasingly felt. Through their neural link, emotions had flowed both ways, creating a foundation of understanding that transcended physical differences. I don't wish to pressure you, Kale continued. Vexillian intimacy is different from human practices in many ways, but if you were willing. Damien closed the distance between them, a decision made not in haste, but in the culmination of everything they had experienced together. His hand reached up to touch Kale's face, tracing the iridescent markings that he had come to find beautiful. Show me, he said simply. What followed was a revelation. The neural link heightened every sensation as they discovered each other, Vexillian and human anatomies different yet wonderfully compatible. Kale's touch was both gentle and confident, guiding Damien through unfamiliar yet intensely pleasurable rituals of bonding. The empathic connection multiplied every feeling, creating feedback loops of pleasure and emotional resonance that transcended anything Damien had experienced before. When they finally lay together afterward, their bodies intertwined in the ship's adjusted gravity, Damien felt the bond transform. What had begun as an imposed connection, a consequence of failed violence, had become something chosen, something sacred. I tried to kill you, Damien murmured, tracing patterns on Kale's blue skin. Kale's laugh rumbled through his chest. Perhaps not your most diplomatic overture. And now look at us. Damien shook his head in wonderment. Architects of peace, complete bondmates. Life follows unexpected paths. Kale's fingers threaded through Damien's hair. When you first entered my chamber with that blade, I sensed something in you, a warrior's spirit, yes, but also integrity, something worth cultivating. You mean worth marrying? Damien corrected with a smirk. By our standards, yes. Kale's expression grew serious. Do you regret it, any of it? Damien considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, he had been a dedicated soldier with a clear mission. Now he was something else entirely, diplomat, lover to an alien being, bridge between worlds. No, he answered truthfully. My mission was to protect Earth. I've done that, just not in the way I expected. Through their bond, he sent all the emotion he couldn't quite put into words, gratitude, respect, devotion. Kale received it, returning the sentiment with equal intensity. Outside their viewport, Earth rotated slowly, and beyond it, the stars beckoned. The treaty they had helped create would open new possibilities for both species, exploration, collaboration, growth. And at the center of it all was this most unlikely of unions, a bond forged first in violence but transformed by choice. What happens now? Damien asked, not just about the immediate future but about all that lay ahead. Kale's 4 eyes gleamed with affection. Now, my bondmate, we build something new together. As the ship's lights dimmed to simulate night, Damien found himself exactly where he was meant to be, caught between worlds yet belonging to both, bound to a being he had once feared but now cherished. The assassination attempt that had failed had given rise to something far more powerful than death could ever be, a love that crossed the stars and united 2 worlds.